My name is Jason, and this is Just Watches. All right, today we have another Islander. This is the ISL-54. Now, if you're not familiar with Islander, it's basically the house brand of LongIslandWatch.com. A longtime distributor of watches, Mark went ahead and released his own line of watches, and this is one of the options. Now, I've always thought this particular watch, this ISL-54, was pretty cool. It's sort of a fleeker, sort of a field watch. Screw down crown, 100 meters of water resistance, a little bit of a do-everything, but I never really went for it until I saw someone selling it used on this Hirsch Robbie strap. And there's something about this combination, the orange of the strap with the orange of that second hand, it just goes so perfect. I've also always wanted to check out one of these nicer Hirsch straps. I've never had on my hand on one of these kind of performance style straps. So I thought, you know what, two things I want to check out in one package, I gotta go for it. So, as always, we're going to do pros, cons, and then if I think this watch is worth the money. But before we begin, if you're enjoying the content of this channel, I invite you to subscribe. And if you like the content of this individual video, please give it a thumbs up. Thank you so much. So starting with the case, it's 40 millimeters in diameter, 47.5 millimeters lug to lug, 13 millimeters thick, and then we have a 20 millimeter lug width opening here. Now the finishing of this watch is well done. So the top of the bezel is all brushed. It's very uniform, except the very outer edge is a high polish ring. So that's going to help with a little bit of visual interest on the watch overall. The top of the lugs are also brushed, and then they do transition. There's not really a chamfered edge. It's just kind of a transition there into the high polish sides. And then there is a facet there in the edge of the case. It does kind of scallop back in. The lugs then also do have a slight curve down that's going to help with the overall wear. I really like this case, and I think the finishing is quite good, and it does play with the light. I do like the choice to do an almost all brushed bezel here, because it does gives it a more toolish aesthetic. So as we covered in the intro, the watch is not currently on its stock strap. Here is the stock strap. It's just a genuine leather, all black strap, starts at 20 millimeters, tapers down to 18 millimeters. You do have the signature of the Long Island logo there on the pin and buckle, but this strap it's pretty flimsy, to be honest with you. I don't think it's going to stand the test of time. Mark did mention in his video that he expects most people to switch the strap out on this watch, and then there is also an additional bracelet that you can get for $50 that I think might be a good upgrade. Just something to keep in mind, if you do go for this watch, keep in mind you're probably going to want to switch out the strap or go for that optional bracelet. So flipping the watch over, we have a screw-in exhibition case back. Now that's going to help provide 100 meters of water resistance, and then you have minimal text here, Islander, Sapphire, and the Islander logo. Now powering this watch is the NH35. That's a 21,600 vibration per hour movement. It's going to hack and hand wind. And then it has a stated accuracy of -20 to +40 seconds per day, but in my experience, you usually get closer to ±10 seconds with these movements. And then it has a 41-hour power reserve, and then this watch technically does have a ghost position. There is the date position, but all of the internals, including the date ring, have been removed, so you won't feel any mechanical action if you turn the crown in that position. And that's something I actually sort of appreciate. The ghost position, it doesn't really bother me, but I like that they went the step and took out the internals for the date. So the 6.5 millimeter screw down crown is signed there with the Islander logo, and it is a little bit gravelly when you screw and unscrew the crown, but it's perfectly fine and it's easy to operate the watch. I've also had that experience on some Seiko models, and it tends to get much smoother over time. Just don't expect it to be super smooth like it might be on, say, like a Steinhardt or some of the other Swiss-made watches. So the crystal is a domed sapphire, and there is anti-reflective coating on the underside, and it does provide some pretty cool distortions when viewed from an angle. You can see it distorting out the dial there. I really appreciate that they use sapphire here, and I always appreciate an application of AR coating. So the dial is a matte black, and now starting from the outside, you do have each of the 5 minutes are spelled out and designated 5, 10, 15, and then between those you do have dashes for each of the minutes. Between those dashes you actually have even smaller gray dashes. It's a little bit difficult to see, but if you put your eyes right at the 9 o'clock position, you can kind of see them flanking that 45, and that does add a little bit of kind of nuance to the dial overall. Other than that, it's quite simple. You just have the 12, 3, 6, and 9, and those are all loomed, including the indices for the remaining hours are loomed as well. Then you have the Islander logo at 12 o'clock. That is also loomed, and then just automatic at the 6 o'clock position. So a very minimalistic and simple dial, which I do appreciate and does add to its overall extreme legibility. So the sword style hands, they're very Flieger-esque, and they do give the watch sort of a Flieger feel. It also gives me a little bit of a field watch feel, but they are outlined in black. Now, I actually would have preferred if they weren't, because the hands are quite long. You can technically see, if I get the light just right, that that minute hand is very long. It's going all the way out to the dash there on the edge of the dial. But as you can see, because they're edged in black, oftentimes the edge of the hands, especially in less intense light, they just kind of fade into the back of the watch, into the dial, and it makes the hands look actually way smaller overall because you just don't really see the black edges of the hands. So if I had one improvement for the handset, I might just not edge the hands at all and just make them full loomed, or maybe even edge them in white. I don't know if that would overcomplicate the color design, but I do think that the edging the hands in black does make them seem much smaller. But I do love the splash of color on that orange second hand, and it has the cool lollipop, and that is also loomed. So as you can see, the lume is pretty decent. Steinhardt also has pretty good lume on their watch. I wouldn't call either of these watches Seiko bright lume, but I also can't complain about the lume on this. I think it is decent and it does its job. So popping down the Timegrapher, and this one is running 10 seconds a day fast. So yeah, basically what I see out of Seiko NH35s and 36s is, although they say minus 20 to plus 40, you generally get about plus or minus 10 seconds. Then you have fine amplitude and 0 beat error on this watch. So here is the watch on my 6 3/4 inch wrist. 40 millimeter case diameter, 47.5 millimeter lug to lug, with a slight downturn to those lugs. It's going to be a crowd pleasing size. It's going to work pretty well on a variety of wrists, and you can see extremely legible. You'll have no trouble telling the time with this one on your wrist. Which brings me to the pros and cons. First pro on this one, ultra legible. This is, as you can see on the wrist shot, it's very easy to tell the time on this piece, and that is something I can appreciate. I mean, a watch is there. One of its main functions is to tell the time. Second, you're always going to get a great set of features from Long Island Watch. No exception here. You have sapphire glass, hacking, hand-winding movement, screw-down crown, 100 meters of water resistance for $199. And then I think this one is a strap monster. As you can see with this Hirsch Robbie, with that orange kind of complementing the orange of the second hand, I think it looks amazing. And I think there's many, many, many other straps and color choices that you could pair with this watch. And then finally, it's a bit of a do-anything watch. This is the dateless version, which I do prefer. I think if you just wanted to have a real anything watch, you could go with the ISL-53. It's this exact same watch, except it does have the date position. They drop the 3 numeral and replace it with the date. As far as the cons, not really a con, but a little bit of a nitpick. I would actually prefer this watch to be 39 millimeters. If Mark watches this video, I think he's going to go crazy, because I think everyone asks him to make all of his watches in different sizes, and you just can't please everybody. 40 millimeters here was probably a really good idea to sell to a lot of people. I would really like to see this be like 38 or 39, but you can't make everyone happy with the sizes, and I'm sure that's something that Mark is familiar with. Second, the strap is not great. I've heard the bracelet is really good, but just keep in mind, I think you're going to want to lose this stock strap. So either plan on getting that bracelet or plan on investing a little bit in a nicer strap for this one. And then finally, the handset. It's a great size, but I wish that it wasn't edged in black, because on wrist throughout the day, it does make the hands look a lot smaller than they actually are, because you kind of lose the edges against the black of the dial. So is this watch worth the money? Well, I always think you're getting a good deal with Long Island watches. You get a really nice set of specs for a really reasonable price. Now, it's true you can get similar specs in even cheaper watches if you go with some of the AliExpress brands, but you're sacrificing customer service and you're sacrificing the peace of mind you're going to get buying from a long established store with a solid track record of customer service. I think I would like to pay. I'm a little bit more comfortable buying from Mark in Long Island when I know I can return the watch very easily. If I have a problem with it, I'm not going to have to try to worry about shipping it back to China or something like that. So I think you are getting a good deal with these watches. And then the other thing to keep in mind is they do right now, and I don't know if this will remain true, but they take a pretty massive hit on the secondary market. So if you really want to grab a great deal, look for one of these used. I actually got this one used as well. I always recommend buying watches used, especially if they're lightly used. And I might actually put out a video on that in an upcoming segment about how to and what to look for when buying a used watch. So there you have it, the Islander ISL-54. Let me know what you think about this watch in the comments below. As always, if you're enjoying the content of this channel, I invite you to subscribe. And if you like the contents of this individual video, please give it a thumbs up. That's all for this time. My name is Jason, and you've been watching Just Watches.